Welcome to Produce Talks.
This whole business is based on relationship and friendships.
Food is darn simple.
What can we do? What are other countries doing?
How important it is for industry to be talking about this.
We're going back to the farm. We're going back to the whole food.
Hello, and welcome to Produce Talks, the CPMA podcast. I'm Wally Burns, the new Education and Training Manager at CPMA. Today, we are pleased to welcome Mr. Jorge Londono de la Cuesta, who has been the Colombian Ambassador to Canada since November 2020. Ambassador Londono will introduce us to Colombia and provide us insights on opportunities to engage in business with the South American country. CPMA would like to acknowledge Nature Fresh Farms as a sponsor of this podcast. Find out more about Nature Fresh Farms and how they are growing for a kinder future at www.naturefresh.ca. You can keep up with them on Instagram or Twitter at nature_fresh and on Pinterest at naturefresh, along with other social media. CPMA would like to welcome Fresh from Florida as a new sponsor of this podcast. Here is a quick message from Chef Justin of Fresh from Florida.
Hi, I'm Chef Justin Timoneri, Executive Chef with Fresh from Florida, a proud sponsor of this podcast. Fresh from Florida loves being a part of CPMA and sharing the message of what Florida farmers bring to the table. To learn more and to find hundreds of Florida Fresh recipes that we develop for you in our test kitchen, visit followfreshfromflorida.com and follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Fresh from Florida. Enjoy the show and keep cooking.
And now, here is CPMA President Ron Lemaire in a conversation with Ambassador Londono of Colombia.
Thank you, Wally, and welcome, Ambassador.
Welcome.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Yeah, and thank you for being part of our podcast today. You know what, I'd like to start off, and maybe you can tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and how you see your role will influence produce in the Canadian marketplace.
Yes, Ron, thank you very much for this invitation to talk with you in this podcast. You know, I have never been diplomat before coming into Canada last January. All my life used to be in the business sector. So once I came here, I had a meeting with my team and we tried to set goals in the middle term. So our main goal is how to double our exports or our trade with Canada by 2025. And at this moment, we are studying the different sectors and the numbers. How are we going to produce that result? Of course, this year we celebrated free trade agreement, the 10th anniversary of our free trade agreement. So what we are looking now is how to improve the numbers that this agreement have produced. Because during the last 10 years, the trade between our countries have improved almost between 20-30%. But our goal, as I told you, is how to double the trade in the next 5 years. So I think my role is how to improve the trade with Canada, considering that the most important part in the relationship that Colombia has with Canada is in terms of trade and investment. Also in the political area, but trade and investment is our focus at this moment.
And, you know, Ambassador, having a business background, I think, is very important in your role. And it's really nice to hear that you have that experience, because I don't think people realize how important bringing a business philosophy to politics and to the environment of building a market is fundamental, because you're dealing with not only politicians, but you're also dealing with the businesses themselves. And that must be beneficial.
Yes, that's right. As I told you, the relationship between Colombia and Canada is very strong in many areas. Canada has supported us a lot in the implementation of the peace process agreement that we had 5 years ago with the former guerrillas. And this process is going to take about 15 years to be completed. But Canada has been a very good ally in Colombia in this process. And also Canada is working very hard with Colombia in how to bring back democracy to Venezuela. You know, Venezuela is our main neighbor country, where Colombia has a border with Venezuela 2,000 kilometers long. And now, because of the socioeconomic and political problems that Venezuela is facing today, more than 2 million Venezuelans have migrated into Colombia. So this is a huge problem for our country. But Canada is supporting us in how to handle this situation, and not only how to help the migrants that come into Colombia, but also how to produce a change in Venezuela that can improve its democracy and also the well-being of its citizens.
And, you bring up a very, very good point, because the South American dynamic is integrated. And I think we see that, especially on produce exports and business relationships. If there is any political challenges in one country, we feel it across multiple countries. So I want to talk a little bit and look at, the growth you've seen in Colombia. And I know now Colombia being Canada's 5th largest trading partner.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the growth that you've seen with the free trade agreement, which is exciting. But COVID has thrown a curve at everyone. And your country has really emerged perhaps stronger through the pandemic. What can you tell Canadians around what you've seen and what Colombians did to emerge from COVID?
Yeah, you know that Colombia is having today a very good numbers in terms of its economy recovery. But let's talk first about how are we handling the pandemic, because it's very important to tell people that now Colombia have vaccinated more than 50% of its population. And is one of the best countries in Latin America in the vaccination programs. We are hoping to finalize our vaccination program by the end of this year, to have at least 70% of our population vaccinated. But the most important thing right now is that we have only 1,300 infections per day and less than 30 deaths per day. We haven't had the 4th wave in Colombia because of our economy is still informal. We have 50% of our workforce working in formal conditions and 50% work in informal conditions. So the infections rate was very high last year, very high. When we see results for scientific community trying to identify the percentage of Colombia that has already been infected, it found that almost 90% of Colombia already received COVID-19 infection. So at this moment, we don't have problems with the pandemic. Our economy is completely open. The flights or the international flights are working in full conditions. We have now more than 60% of the people going to Colombia, considering the numbers that we had before the pandemic. And during the last 2 quarters, the Colombian economy has been growing more than 10%. So our forecast for 2021 is that our GDP will grow about 10% and our unemployment rate is going down, and we are going to end this year having an unemployment rate for about 10 to 11%, which is very good in terms of the Colombian history unemployment rates. So our economy is doing pretty well. We are growing so fast. Our inflation rate is similar to the developed countries. At this moment, our inflation rate is about 4.5%. And one other aspect that we already did that many countries still need to do is that we did our fiscal reform, our tax reform. We already did that process last month. So in terms of our fiscal health, the central government is doing very well, and we are very well prepared in order to attend all the social issues that we need to attend after the pandemic in order to support the introduction of people to the labor market. That is the new normal life, which we need to develop skills in terms of technology and in terms of IT and business associated with technology. And our government is working very hard with this issue.
And I understand from seeing change in the Colombian market, the business environment is always looking, and you touched on some key pieces, the regulatory reform. So your tax reform work and the market reforms, especially around labor. There's been a lot of work, I understand, in the Colombian market, as you mentioned, around labor reforms and trying to bring labor levels to a new level, which I think is a key aspect of business investment and business development, which I know for the fresh fruit and vegetable sector is very important, because in Canada, a lot of the buyers looking for new opportunities are looking for that business relationship that's not a short-term relationship, it's a long-term relationship. So I want to ask a question and go into maybe a little bit more about the change you've seen in the last 5 years in the Colombian fresh fruit and vegetable sector. And as we've seen exports begin to grow, some foreign market investment and thoughts that you're looking at from a Colombian viewpoint on where opportunities are. Because I know in Canada, we're just under about 400 million in imports from Colombia on fresh fruit and vegetables. It's growing. It continues to grow out of the Latin American countries. And some are saying it is diamond in the rough. People think they don't necessarily think of Colombia right away. And you mentioned about the guerrillas, and that has now, with the peace process in place, has started to change dynamics. So what can you tell me about some of those opportunities and the changes you've seen in 5 years?
Yeah, Colombia has 17 trade agreements in force, enable preferential access to more than 60 countries and reaching nearly 1.5 billion consumers across markets, including the United States and Canada. And as a matter of fact, as I told you before, in August 2021, marked a 10-year anniversary of a free trade agreement between Canada and Colombia. This first decade of the trade agreement between the two countries has left revenues in exports and progress in tax relief. In more general terms, Colombia has also undergone a positive transformation in the last few years, and we have earned recognition as a key commercial ally and as a must-see destination for the North Americans. We have found that 32 million hectares available. We have around 32 million hectares available for cultivating multiple crops. And we have been named by the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization as one of the 7 tropical countries with the potential to become world's pantry. On that land available for crops, Colombia has more than 2.4 million hectares suitable for growing avocados, 12.5 million hectares for pineapples, 11 million for mangoes, 12 million for bell peppers, 12 million for chili peppers, 8 million for papayas, 3 million for strawberries, 13 million for onions, and more than 1 million hectares for potatoes. So Colombia has a lot of potential for people who are looking how to develop business in our territory, because only 3, 4, 5% of our territory is already developed for cultivating produce. So what we need is to receive investments and to increase the trade with our allies, countries like Canada, in order to offer all the different crops that we can give to the world.
And Ambassador, from a Canadian perspective, you do have that flexibility of having product come into the market outside of the Canadian production cycle. So you can work, you're not competing against local products, so to speak, but you mentioned a range of tropicals that we don't even grow here. So if we look at Colombia as a true partner where trade can operate in a non-competitive manner, there is significant opportunity, is there not?
Exactly, Ron. You mentioned that Colombia is a tropical country. So we don't have seasons in Colombia. We only have or rain period or dry periods. But as a tropical country, we work as a complementary market for Canada. And indeed, we are, for example, looking for the certification of the Canadian authorities how to Colombia trade with strawberries with Canada. Blueberries.
Blueberries, yes.
Yes. How to develop the market of Colombian blueberries here in Canada. And we hope to end or to finalize this process by 2022. And Canada, this is not competition for Canada. Canada, during 4-6 months during the year, doesn't have the possibility to crop blueberries. So Colombia is a complementary partner in order for you to have the supply that you need to attend the consumer here in Canada.
Well, and I know currently in Canada, $4 to $5 spent on fresh fruit and vegetables is on imported product. To your point, while we do have a strong domestic industry, there are seasons that we just can't produce. And Canadians love fresh fruit and vegetables and a diversity of fresh fruit and vegetables, which Colombia can provide as an option. I want to just maybe wrap up and give you the opportunity to give Canadian companies a little bit of knowledge on what they can do to start the process of connecting with Colombian shippers and or other Colombian companies. What do they need to do to start that process?
Okay. I would like to add also, Ron, that remember to the Canadians that Colombia is a country that has a population of 50 million people. So it's a big market for the Canadian companies that would like to develop their businesses. And also we are in the same time zone than Canada, So it's very easy to develop business with Colombia, comparing with other countries in the world that have different time zones. You can take a flight to Colombia and it takes only 5 hours to go there. We have several frequencies and routes going from Montreal to Bogota or Toronto to Bogota, and you will be there only in 5 hours. So it's very important also. And because Colombia is located in the north part of South America, we have the privilege to attend all other Latin American countries very easy. So Colombia is geographically, in terms of its location, is strategically located to develop all the Latin American countries for a company, for a Canadian company or a North American company. And also, I will add as another characteristic that is very important is that our workforce, the Colombian workforce, is very talented, and we are very work-oriented. Colombians love to work is one of our values. And for the Canadian companies, this is an aspect very important because what we want is to see our business growing and our companies doing better every time. Now, in terms of institutional aspects, one of the main values that our democracy has is that we love the private sector and free trade. So the Colombian government tried to improve the private sector and the free trade because we understand very well that through the private sector is how we can develop our society. All the needs that our society has is better covered by the private sector than the public sector. So we look, we look for having international or foreign companies going into Colombia. For that reason, we have developed many tools that facilitate the arrival of multinational or international companies in Colombia. Our Ministry of Trade has developed many facilities. We have only one unique window to attend all the issues needed for any company that wants to be established in Colombia. And we have a lot of tax incentives in order to facilitate the return of their investments in Colombia. And during the last 10 years, regarding our free trade agreement, more than 200 Canadian companies already have been established in our country. And in this period, more than $7 billion have been invested in Colombia by Canadian companies. And these numbers are growing continuously year by year. And we are very happy to have the Canadian investment. Canada is very well recognized in Colombia as a good country to have relations with. And we see you Canadians as a country that has accomplished its development in a sustainable way. So, for example, also in terms of the energy and oil sector or in the mining sector, there are a lot of investment in those areas in Colombia from Canadian companies. But we see that you here in Canada have developed sustainable business models that we want to introduce also in Colombia, not only, of course, in the energy and mining sector, but also in the produce sector and in vegetables and agriculture sectors.
And Ambassador, I think the opportunity is boundless. And for any company that is interested, I know ProColombia has a range of services. And if you, as a listener, wanted to go online at procolombia.co, you can find information on how you can connect with the right individuals to enable your business opportunities in Colombia. I am also looking forward at our convention in the coming year in Montreal. We're hoping to host Colombian companies that can showcase their businesses to Canadian buyers, and the opportunity to meet one-on-one, and also to host you, Ambassador, at the Montreal convention. It's always a great opportunity to meet the business and meet the industry. So exciting times as we move forward.
Yes, Ron. Yes. Thank you very much for all the work that you are going to improve or increase the relationship between Colombia and Canada. We hope to get our goal to double our exports by 2025, and your help is mandatory for us.
Wonderful.
It's mandatory. And as you said, Colombia here in Canada, we have, of course, our embassy, but our mission has two branches. One is the political branch, and the other one is the trade and commercial branch, which is led by ProColombia. So ProColombia is the office that work daily to increase the trade between Canada and Colombia, and to attract investment into Colombia, and to increase also the tourism numbers. You know that before the pandemic, Canada was, or Canadians were the people who were growing fastest to visit Colombia comparing to any other country in the world. So it's very important to increase the tourism also between our countries, because it's the best way the citizens can see how the other country can offer services and products that can be introduced in a daily life here in Canada.
And Ambassador, Canadians love tropical climates, so it doesn't surprise me that we were growing in numbers and in tourism in Colombia. So, Ambassador, thank you for joining us on this episode, and I'd like to thank our listeners for listening in. So until next time, fill half your plate with fruit and veggies, continue to seek out new knowledge, and never stop growing.